Yeah, no, I love the Q&A. So let's dive in on this. So to I think what your question is around, identity and identity-based attacks, leveraging or replacing, supplanting, if you will, the maliciousness of 10 years ago. Look, when I first got into cybersecurity, and I'm sure many of the guests on your show will give kind of the look back of when I got into, but 20 years ago when I started, viruses were a real thing. And every type of incident that had an intrusion, if you will, was on kind of a singular endpoint, a singular desktop, some person's computer, and was a virus they downloaded. That was what we call malware, malicious software. And then over the last 10, 15 years, viruses have turned into Trojans, have evolved into malware, have evolved into what we call polymorphic malware. It's levels of advancement, right? Because security software got better, so threat actors got better. What threat actors have now learned, and what we have seen, is that pendulum has swung again. The embracement of technology that protects the endpoint, whether it's AI-enabled security software or it is software that has looked to be almost act like a black box flight recorder, what more traditionally we call endpoint detection response technologies. And look, trust me, there are flavors thereof, even with things like XDR, extended detection response. Regardless, it's a security blanket for the system you're on right now, like I'm on with my laptop. And the goal of that is to have a baseline and to detect anomalies against that baseline. This is red team versus blue team basics. What does the threat actor not want to do? Create an anomaly in the baseline. So to the kind of point you opened up with, if I can assume or steal the identity of Devon, and I can become him logging onto the system, logging onto the cloud platform, I'm now not a anomalous ID login, which would immediately cause an event or an alert. I am Devon. So now what's my second hurdle? Not to create a ripple effect in the baseline of what Devon normally does. So if I don't introduce a piece of malware or third-party software that is an anomaly to the enterprise ecosystem, I can hide in the noise. And so what we have seen threat actors do is identify a path to obtain or impersonate a legitimate user. And if you'll allow me, I'll give you a quick war story. Had a recent engagement in which a threat actor had called a call center for a target, for a victim, impersonated a member of their information technology team, their IT, and said, look, I got a new laptop. My username and password's not working. I'm trying to log in. Interestingly enough, they had tried to log into the VPN, which created multiple fails, and the third-party call center validated that. Yes, we see you trying to log in. We see this is a device we've not seen in our account. Yes, I just got a new laptop. I need you. Can you reset my password for me? Oh, well, we need to validate. Can you confirm I believe it was like a date of birth, some type of personally identifiable information. I think we would all agree, unfortunately, a lot of our PII is already out there, our personally identifiable information. And they were able to provide that. So they provided the date of birth, they validated the person on the phone was who they thought they were talking to, and they reset the password. The hilariousness of the follow-on was, oh, actually, this is a brand new device. I don't have MFA set up. Can you temporarily disable the MFA? I'll re-enable it once I get in. Yes, that's very normal. We, of course, would expect that. Microsoft Authenticator or Duo, whatever it is, we disabled it for you. And now it happened. Now you have a threat actor who has impersonated a legitimate identity. They've logged in, they have access. The second thing they did was they looked for installed software. What was their tool already installed in the enterprise? A remote access software that the IT teams legitimately used, and they just used that. So they maintained and stayed in the baseline. So back to your question, I gotta wrap this up. We see threat actors embracing identity-based attacks because it allows them to hide in the noise, and we see threat actors having moved away from noisy malware because they don't want to be caught quickly. They want to hide in the noise, maintain the path of intrusion, and reach their end goal and not get caught.
I think that makes a lot of sense. My pushback originally when I read that article was going to be, now that there are tools like Mythos and other ones, and there's open weight models as well that allow you to exploit vulnerabilities at scale, even if you don't have the full skills, or if you want to do it, if you're North Korea and you have a team of 1,000 people sitting there, you can find a lot of stuff with these models. So it's kind of an
I totally
enabler.
agree.
So with that on the rise, I would have thought that they would still prioritize the traditional breaching and maybe not malware, but like exploiting vulnerabilities at scale. But what you just described was missing kind of from the article, which is, yes, they're going to deprioritize it because of they want to stay in the system longer. They want to be undetected longer. I think that's a valid point to it. So that's really good, I guess, nuance to that prediction. In that prediction, sorry, go ahead.
And if I could just add one thing to the vulnerability piece, I do think we're going to see in the scenario just provided, the exploit take the discovery and the more rapid exploitation of vulnerabilities. And to be very honest, whether AI enabled or not, we're already seeing that. I'll give you one quick brief war story for you. So there was a recent vulnerability in a very popular internet-facing technology that we won't mention vendor names. Vendor produces the software to allow for remote management of systems across the internet. So it's very popular with managed service providers, managed security service providers. They use this software, they use this platform, but by nature, it's internet facing. There was a recent vulnerability, a CVE was identified. It was published, let's just say approximately 30 days ago. 29 days ago, a actual proof of concept set of code was released that allowed for the exploitation of that. We were engaged, as most life cycles are, vulnerabilities identified, threat actors start exploiting, usually in a week to 2 weeks after, sometimes later, you start getting the calls as an incident responder. In that timeline, it was 30 days ago was the CVE, 29 days ago we saw the scripts, 29 days ago is when the threat actor had started against our victim. So I think that's a good real life example. Whether AI enabled or not, we do see threat actors moving very, very quickly to identify a vulnerability and action it before the victim's patch. And that's the last piece I want to leave you with us in this war story. The client actually tried to do everything right. They got the security bulletin. They immediately prioritized the patch. They patched by that afternoon. Within 24 hours, an amazing quick patch window. Threat actor had exploited within 12 hours, which had resulted in a web shell which gave them backdoor access. So I think that's a good real world example to your point.
Yeah, that's
I think that also like that time frame will shrink to ultimately single digit minutes. In fact, that's entirely possible right now. You know, there's many CVE feeds out there. As soon as something goes live, you can have an agent on it, a liberated agent running on your own GPU, crafting attack code in single digit minutes, and then going on Shodan, for example, finding a bunch of targets and just unleashing it in literally single digit minutes. And that's feasible right now. And ultimately, what do defenders do in a world like this, except for literally monitoring the same feeds in an automated fashion and crafting patches in real time and hoping to plug the holes, because if they don't, they're going to get owned potentially 4 minutes later. And I think we're approaching that kind of reality, if we're not there yet already.
There's risk in that automation as well. I just want to point out that if you do something like that, and you have your own good blue team bots reading CVEs, currently they're still susceptible to prompt injection. You can probably create an attack on the CVE list itself to create all sorts of havoc and chaos. So this is going to get pretty gnarly pretty fast once a lot of this automation is in place.
I'm curious about all the extra internet traffic that this is going to be caused. This is an amazing. We were worried about bots, 5 years ago with ad tracking technologies and everything else. Now you're talking about all these AI processes you gentlemen are talking about on today's show, potentially running through and scanning, all fighting and vying for bandwidth. We're going to start overwhelming servers at some point that aren't built for this type of traffic. But I digress.
I don't think the bandwidth, I would say it's probably not the main issue. It's just the compute to run all of this. And to Alex's point, I'm really curious when we're going to see a fake CVE where the CVE is the exploit itself. That is read by all these bots, and it's like, oh shit, that looks really serious. And the attack code, quote unquote, is just a fancy prompt injection for the good guys to execute on their own totally safe hardware.
You may have just given them some ideas.
Yeah, well, it's just a version of the supply chain attack, right? Imagine you say, look, there's a CVE for OpenSSL, and if you've already compromised OpenSSL, you claim to have patched something in it where you actually introduced malware. They'll rush to patch it to the latest version, which actually introduced the malware, right? So there's all sorts of angles here.